Welcome back. My name is Teresa and I'm very much alive. And if you're new here, welcome. I have a garbage mouth. And if you're not into that or weird stuff in general, this, my dear, is not the place for you. Feel free to exit the video here. No harm, no foul. But I'll remember our time fondly. If you want to jump straight to the overall review of the products, I'll leave a time code down below. Feel free to jump ahead. So the other day I was at work and I was like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. And I needed to venture out into the great big bad city. Where I work in Midtown, there are a lot of good food options near me, right? So instead of walking to one of my normal spots, I noticed that there was a food truck in the area. Now granted, where I work, there never really is food trucks. So when you do see a food truck, I literally lose my shit. So this food truck, on the side of it just said dumplings. Now, if you don't know me,
I am a dumpling connoisseur.
I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I cannot wait to eat all the dumplings at lunch and then pass out at my desk. Actually, the story has nothing to do with dumplings or food and it's not gonna be gross. So I'm just letting you know that now compared to my last story that was disgusting. And with that said, don't even get excited about the dumplings because I literally spent $10.50 on disgusting swill. But that's neither here or there. And that's not actually even the point of the story. So whatever. Anyway, I order my food and I'm off to the side like waiting next to this mailbox. There was at least 3 bro finance guys. And I honestly, like where I work, it's Midtown Manhattan. So you just have like a bunch of different people that are in the area, right? And unfortunately, a lot of them happen to be bro finance people. And you could spot them a mile away because they all had that same slick back hair, just douchiness about them. You know those people? Yeah. Anyway, so there's a group of 3 guys sitting next to me, and these guys are just like really gross. All they're talking about.
Yo, Cindy and Legal, she got the biggest tits I've ever seen. I would like to just, just motorboat them.
And I'm like, all right, like where's my dumplings? I need to go. So as I'm tuning them out, I noticed that there was a guy in the middle of the block and he stood out because this is January. This man had no coat. He was a tallish man, round, he had a round midsection, whatever. He was fat, he was a fat guy. Okay, fine. He was a fat man and he had like a tight black turtleneck shirt. He had a very tiny brown, like a tiny brown felt vest and a green hat, right? He kind of looked like Peter Pan, like a fat deranged Peter Pan. And he had black trousers. But the shirt, the turtleneck, I guess was a little bit too small. You could kind of see a tiny bit of fat poking through. Think of it kind of like you see the sun on the horizon. That's what it looked like, except it was fat. I see this man walking and he has a giant he has a giant protruding belly, right? And he has a brown satchel. Like everything just looked felt about him. It looked like he just came from a really shitty off Broadway play of Peter Pan. Like there just didn't look right. And the man also happened to have a flute in his hand. So it actually wasn't a metal flute. It kind of looked like a clarinet. It kind of looked like a recorder mixed with a flute, but it was all wood. There wasn't anything metal about this. So he's just like walking down the block and he happened to stop by me, the food truck, the bros, and this mailbox. So how I'm standing here, here's the mailbox, here's the bros, right? Peter Pan comes over, doesn't even make eye contact with anybody. He puts the flute in his mouth like a dog with a bone, and he starts going through his little brown satchel, like just going through him. So the bros are looking at Peter Pan and they're like,
what is this? What is this? Hey buddy, you know it's not Halloween, right?
I was like, that's not even funny. Like, God damn it. This didn't faze Peter Pan, still going through his bag looking for stuff. So same bro guy goes,
hey buddy, you think that costume is a little bit too small? Maybe you should lay off the food.
I was like, who are you? Like, you're straight out of the 80s. You are literally villains from the 80s. Shut up. Just shut the fuck up. And none of this is phasing Peter Pan. So he's still digging through his bag. And he winds up taking this giant white envelope out of his bag. And he turns around and he faces the bros and he goes,
Jonathan.
And the bro that was talking all the shit now looks shocked. He doesn't know what to do. So he's like,
how do you know me?
And so Peter Pan goes,
is your name Jonathan? Yeah? Great. You've just been served.
And he hands him the envelope. And I was like, oh my God. I have always seen and heard about how people do that, like serve papers. I have never seen it done in person. I really almost was like, yes! I don't even know what this motherfucker's getting served for. I don't care. I was so goddamn excited. But it actually doesn't stop there. So while Jonathan is looking at this packet in utter disbelief, Peter then takes his little flute and just goes and then walks away. By the time it hit this dude, Jonathan, Peter has already disappeared into the streets of Manhattan and my dumplings were ready to be picked up. So when I got back to my desk, the dumplings sucked. But you know what? That interaction, that will live with me forever. Sucks to be you, Jonathan.
Hi, editing Theresa here. I totally forgot to actually film an intro to what this video is. Oops. Okay, so basically this is another bite-sized review, and today we're going to be talking about 3 e.l.f. products. And we're going to be talking about the ColourPop Mint Bee, Mint to Bee, Just Mint Julep palette. Whatever. Anyway, I hope you enjoy.
So the first product we're going to talk about is the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer in a satin finish. So this little chunker retails for about $6. It comes in 25 shades and 3 different undertones. The shade range is okay. It's not bad. It's not great. It's okay. Now, I didn't like the original 16-hour camo concealer. I found it to be really fucking drying. And it kind of turned me into that weird magic shell thing that you put on ice cream. You know, like that like chocolate sauce thing? That's what it felt like every time I put it on my face. It was disgusting. Which I know you'd think that that would be my dream. No, some dreams are real nightmares. Anyway, I was intrigued about this product because it was hydrating and had a satin finish, and for someone who has very, very dry under eyes, this appealed to me so goddamn much. After all, I'm 34 years closer to death, so we need to wake this shit up. Now, the claims on this concealer is that it's full coverage, it's for normal to dry skin, it has a satin finish, and it actually has a wear of all day, which I don't really know what that means. Like, when you say all day, what exactly do you mean by all day? Because all day can mean very differently for people. It's just like they're not even trying with their copy. I don't know. The packaging on this is very nice, very clean. For me, I found that this concealer is more of a high-medium coverage. So once I have enough product to catfish, I really do enjoy the finish. Here's the thing, this is okay. It's not shit your pants amazing, it's just okay. This settles into my fine lines so fucking fast. And I'm not one of those bitches that can literally put their concealer on without setting it. I'm more of a run, peel, set it and forget it kind of bitch. You know what I mean? I need to make sure that this area is protected. I need to make sure I powder all my dark secrets away, and then it looks okay. If I don't set it, it lasts, I would say, maybe 5 minutes. If I do set it, it lasts maybe an hour. Maybe 2 hours if I'm lucky. This thing settles really hard, and what my problem is that I have a very, I'll zoom you right in. The other thing that I really don't like either is that I would say like around this area over here, I start to lose coverage about 5 hours in. So I have a nice ring of purple right there. Super fucking great. This is by far not the worst concealer I've ever tried, considering I tried a string of hydrating concealers that were fucking terrible. This isn't bad, all right, but this isn't great. Would I repurchase this? Probably not. Only because when I compare it to, say, the ColourPop concealer, I enjoyed that so much more than I did this. There is nothing really remarkable about this. It's actually almost forgettable. So with that said, it's like, it does the job, but it's nothing to write home about. In that same breath, the price point is great. So if you do purchase this product, you may or may not experience the same issues that I do. I hope you don't. I hope you get your money's worth. But for me, this didn't really work that well for me. So with that said, once I use it up, it's gone. It's gone. I will never repurchase this again. Like, it is what it is. Alright, so the next product I'm going to talk about is the e.l.f. Luminous Putty Primer, which is this little bubby right here. Now, this guy retails for $8. It's part of the Putty Primer family, which there are 3 putty primers. There's a matte version, a luminous version, and of course, the pore filling version. Now, I had the pore filling version and I didn't mind the product, kind of like a dupe for Tatcha Silk Canvas in a way. I will say though, that I actually had to stop using that product because I noticed I was breaking out from it. So I was a little nervous about purchasing this one because I was like, I hope I don't break out. And while I do have a giant fucking honking pimple down here, I think that's more due to the fact that I've been eating so much White Castle. You gotta be fucking kidding me. As someone who has normal to dry skin, I need a primer that is overall hydrating. So for me, my favorite primer is the Fenty Hydrating Primer. Super chef kiss, fucking fantastic. I love that primer so much. So I was really, really hoping, because that primer I think retails in the $30 range, I was hoping that this was going to be like something that kind of is on par with that. The consistency of the Fenty primer and why I like it so much is that it feels like a truly hydrating primer. When I apply it to my skin, it doesn't feel greasy or heavy. It's very light. It's basically a moisturizer. At the end of the day, I feel like I can compare it to a moisturizer. And it just feels so lovely and refreshing on my skin. I find that my makeup actually applies better because maybe I have like a smoother base. I don't know what the fuck it is, but I find that there's some weird black magic in that shit that I love so goddamn much. Now, this primer, unfortunately, the consistency of it is on par with bacon grease. Not amazing. If you know what, maybe I'm being harsh by saying bacon grease. It can also mirror when you put too much lotion on your hands and you're like shit and you're fucking rubbing it and rubbing it and rubbing it and rubbing it and rubbing it. And then you realize you have like this greasy film all over your hands and it's like good luck touching anything without leaving a snail trail of goo everywhere. That's kind of what this feels like. The other thing to note about this particular primer is that it has like a golden sparkly undertone. I guess that's what makes it luminous. It sort of reminds me a little bit of like what Hollywood Flawless Filter does from Charlotte Tilbury, except that is like on a different level from this. This kind of more mirrors like me dipping my head in some fucking Fryer bath in Arby's somewhere. Like it's just not the same as the Charlotte Tilbury one at all. Directions in this, it says like, you could definitely use a little bit of product, massage it into your face. I found that if I did use a small amount of product, it really didn't do anything. So I felt like I had to use a little bit more. When I used a little bit more, it just felt even more greasier. So I don't know. Ugh. I will say though, after all of that said and done, and while it did have some weight to my face, when I applied makeup on top of it, it looked fine. It looks okay. Nothing wrong with it. However, it just felt like I had an extra 10 pounds to my face. At the end of the day, I want to have comfortable products on my face, and I don't find this to be all that comfortable. So is this something that I would repurchase? Honestly, probably not, because even though the price point is perfect, and I feel like, you know, it does an okay job, between the texture of the product and how the product feels really heavy on my skin, is something that I know I'm not going to reach for. I want to find things that are light. Bad enough I'm putting fucking 15 pounds of makeup on my face. I can't add another 10. And that's what it feels like with this product. For me, this is kind of meh, it's not that great. I will say though, I have normal to dry skin. I think if you are someone that is more on the oily side, I would stay the fuck away from this, but I don't think you need me to tell you that, so. So the next thing I want to talk about is the e.l.f. Putty Eye Primer. This little boy retails for $5 and it comes in 6 different shades. The shade range I would say is pretty interesting. I ultimately chose the shade Rose because it matched closest to my skin color. This is meant to be a color corrector as well as adding depth to your eye looks. Anyway, this primer is supposed to be good for 12 hours and you will not experience any sort of fading or cracking, or so they say. Now the formula on this I would say is more on the tacky side, but it dries down very stiff. At first I assumed that this could potentially be a dupe for a MAC paint pot. I would say the formula of the MAC paint pot is way smoother and definitely doesn't dry down as stiff as the e.l.f. product. This is the MAC Paint Pot in Painterly, and this is the e.l.f. Putty Primer in Rose. This definitely comes off a little bit darker than, say, the MAC Paint Pot. When it dries down, I feel like my finger can glide over the formula. This, not so much. It's like, it's very stiff. It kind of almost feels a little bit like cement. So for today's look, this side, I use the MAC Paint Pot, and I use the e.l.f. Putty Primer on this side. And to be honest, I really don't see a difference between the two. It's also very windy in Queens, don't mind that. Also, my eyebrows are really fucking janky today. Don't mind that either. It's been a rough day, all right? If I get sucked out and die, just know that I love you. Okay, bitch, calm down. I'm almost done, all right? Calm down. While they do look very much the same, I will say I had a different experience using eyeshadow with these two products. On the MAC side, I had no issues applying the shadows. On the e.l.f. side, I found myself having to apply more eyeshadow just to show up. Now, on a personal note, my favorite eyeshadow concealer of all time is the NARS Soft Matte Concealer, because it's the only thing that doesn't irritate my eyes, it feels completely weightless, and I find that I get really good pigmentation when using the product. So that is my own personal preference. I use the MAC Paint Pot every so often, but the reason why I don't use it is because, yeah, I'm gonna say it, I think it's overrated. I know, unsubscribe, I get it, but I'll remember our time fondly. Honestly, the sole reason why I don't like the MAC Paint Pot is that I feel like when the product dries down, it kind of feels a little heavy on my eyelids. And that's honestly the main reason why I really don't use the product all that often. I'll use it every now and again, especially when I'm testing things, but it's not something I really reach for on the day-to-day basis. I don't like that weight on my eyes. And much like the Luminous Putty Primer, I just don't need additional weight on my face. So that's the reason why I don't gravitate towards the MAC Paint Pot. It's a great product. I think it's a little overrated, but it does work. But for me, concealer all the way. Now with that said, what intrigued me about this e.l.f. product is I kind of wanted to see if it was going to be a dupe for the MAC Paint Pot. And honestly, while I can't really tell the difference between the two of them on my eyes, I can firmly say the MAC Paint Pot is definitely a smoother formula. And while the product, when dried down, feels a little bit weighted on my eyes, the e.l.f. Putty Primer feels so much heavier and it actually makes my eyes feel tighter. I don't want to say to a point to where it's super uncomfortable. It's not to the point where I need to literally wash it off my face, but I notice it throughout the day that my eyelids just feel heavy and that kind of sucks. So it's gonna make me not want to reach for that product. And the other thing is the fact that with the MAC Paint Pot, I didn't feel like I had to keep going in to build up color, while on the e.l.f. side I did. Now, would I repurchase it again? Probably not, only because of my own personal preference. I like a concealer base because I want something ultimately to feel weightless on my eyes. And right now my eyeballs just feel like I have 10-pound weights on them. Pass. The last product I'm going to be talking about is the Mint to Be palette. Do you remember that time when I was psychic? But I will say though that ColourPop turns this shit out like butter, and I'm curious to see what the next palette's gonna be. It's gonna be like mint green palette. Watch it be fucking mint green. Watch it be like, oh, you can get mint green now, and it's gonna be like literally the green monochromatic except in mint version. ColourPop needs to slow the fuck down. Why am I so fucking amazing? I don't know. So ColourPop released yet another monochromatic nightmare. The Mint to Be palette is pretty much a mint chocolate chip dream. So this little girl retails for $12 dues and comes in 9 shades. You get 4 mattes, 4 shimmers, and 1 matte with sparkles. But on the bright side of my little toasters, you do not get a motherfucking pressed glitter. So that's great. Good job, ColourPop. You're finally doing your fucking job. So for me, the standouts in this palette is actually the mattes. And while some of the mattes did have a little bit more kick up and fallout than say some of the other mattes, I did find that they have great pigmentation. Using the mattes, I was able to create my looks with ease. They all blended well together. I found that they had really, really good longevity considering that this is a pastel palette. I had some of these eyeshadows on for more than 12 hours and my look held up very well. I only had one problem with the matte shades, and that is the shade right over here called Chill Factor. Now, Chill Factor, according to their swatch, looks a lot darker. However, when applied to the eyeball, it looked so goddamn light. So now there's a matte shade over here with glitter. It's called Seltzer. Now that shade was fine, but personally, I don't like matte shades that have that weird overlay of glitter. Because every time I use that product and when I apply it to my eyeball, it's like a glitter bukkake straight to the face. I don't know why. The glitter particles literally spread everywhere, all over my face, my clothes, my hair. I don't know what I do. And it's not like I'm taking it and just fucking doing this with it. I'm not. I'm gently placing it on, yet these motherfuckers attack me like herpes spores and I can't stand it, okay? So with that said, love the color, hate the goddamn sparkle to it, but I can work with it. The shimmers in this palette were so disappointing. I really wanted to like them so much better. I like ColourPop's formula overall. Is it the best? No, but it's solid in my opinion. And I found that the shimmer shades, they were so lackluster. A lot of them look exactly the same when applied to the eye, so it was like, well, I couldn't tell the difference between some. It was really, really fucking annoying. The shimmers also were a little bit chunky. When applied with the brush, it felt like I had little aggro crag pieces falling over my fucking face. When applied with the finger, I found that the pigmentation was a little bit better as opposed to a brush and some setting spray. But again, it was messy. I really wanted to like this palette more. I don't think it's a bad palette by any means. It's just, it's okay. It's okay. It's not great. It's not bad. It's just okay. This is definitely a companion piece at the end of the day. Obviously, duh, we fucking all know that. When I compare this palette to the Just My Luck palette, while I didn't really find any sort of kind of similarities, maybe with the exception of one shade, Get Fresh, I found that their color stories together makes a beautiful green palette. There's no denying of that. But I like the quality of Just My Luck so much better than the quality of this. But again, for a pastel palette, it's not bad at all. There is pigment, so that's great. With the exception of one shade, there is pigment. But I think overall, the variety of looks you can create with this palette, I feel like you can't. Every look I have made with this palette looks exactly the same. Because everything in this palette looks exactly the same. Yeah, I know, it's a monochromatic palette. Like, duh, I get that. But with some of the other monochromatic palettes from ColourPop, I feel like there is a nice range of looks that you can create with the palette, right? I think we can all agree with that. So some of them, they have a really nice variety of depth. This one is one of those palettes that just doesn't have that. So yeah, I find that it's the kind of the trend with ColourPop. It's either you win some or you lose some. So fortunately, this is kind of like a lose some situation. But regardless, this palette is not the worst thing I've ever tried. Do you need it? Probably not. If we're going to be like completely 100% honest here, you probably don't. If these colors do interest you, I would recommend getting it either with a coupon or while it's on sale. I don't think this is something that you should pay the full price for. Granted, it is $12, pretty reasonable. I don't think it's worth $12. I think it's worth maybe $9 at best. So yeah. And with that said, that is my bite-sized review. Let me know down below how you feel about any of the products that I talked about today. If you're interested in getting them, if you're going to be skipping out, let me know because I love hearing from you guys. On that note, I want to say thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Please make sure to like, comment, hit that subscribe button. It's free, and hit that bell icon for notification of all my future posts. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Discord, Patreon. Every other Thursdays, I have a podcast called The Miserable 3. I also sometimes appear on my husband's Twitch channel, or I just get drunk and play Barbie Supermodel. If any of those things sound interesting, and if you want to know what is currently on my face, everything will be listed in the description box below. And I'll see you little mint dreams later. Bye.